It's time, 5 years after the signing of the Paris Climate Agreement, that we started to bring this home, showing real ambition. It's time for hope as well. These days there is some hope in this country that we may be able to manage the worst of this pandemic, COVID pandemic, and start to see slightly brighter days than the hard days we've seen in the last year and a half. And this issue of our health and our treatment of our climate are inextricably linked. Listen to what Mike Ryan of the World Health Organization says from his extensive experience. These pandemics are coming because we have not, in our time, protected the natural world. And the destruction of the biome, as he puts it, is the reason we're seeing these pandemics coming at us in a way that is destroying our lives. And there's real health connections and benefits from the actions we will do in having more active social transport system, in having clean air from not burning fossil fuels so we protect our lungs and our hearts and our heads, in building on a connection to nature, which is one thing we have seen in this COVID times. The protection of nature becomes all the more real and important in my mind and special to us. But it's clearly time for us to act, because the natural world is in crisis, is being destroyed before our eyes. We are witnessing it within my lifetime, and we have to stop that. That is the biggest risk, that is the biggest challenge. That puts COVID into the shade in terms of the risks that it brings to our people. And it's for that reason that we're seeing other countries starting to step up and say that they too want to act. That's why it is, I believe, yesterday, today and hopefully tomorrow, there is some signs of hope. The UK government coming out expressing real ambition to what they're going to do. The European Union today coming out and saying we are going to set really ambitious targets for action on climate. Tomorrow, the US government likely to do the same. Massive, dramatic, significant changes in terms of how we address this. When I attend tomorrow's Leaders' Summit on climate action called by President Biden, I intend, and I'm glad to be able to say with certainty on behalf of Ireland, that we too share that ambition. We too stand up for climate justice. We stand up as a signatory to the Paris Climate Agreement, that we're ready to turn that into real action, give it real meaning, give it real force. And we do so humbled by the knowledge that by any comparison our emissions per capita are high. And we have to really show significant change in terms of how we're addressing this. But I believe we can and will do that. That vote signified it. Our people are ready for this. Our people are ready to show leadership, no longer to be called laggards. We are ready. It is time for us to act on climate. Cathaoirleach, I am proud of our party, the Green Party, and for our role in this. For 40 years, we have stood on a ticket that actually we are in a moment of ecological crisis and that we have to react. We have stood on the understanding that the solution to that crisis has to come from democratic, peaceful, participative politics. Well, it's law firal starula don Quintus Gloss today. It's a proud day for our party and for the thousands of people who we've worked with over the years to bring this sort of legislation to this floor. I am glad it's time that it's read a second time. But it's not just our party. The key thing is that it is consensual, that it is broadly accepted. This involves everyone. Every place is going to matter. And what gives me real confidence is what's actually happened in this country in the last 5 years in the politics of climate change. Starting with that Citizens' Assembly, where we, on a scientific basis, brought in 100 of our citizens, presented the best evidence and analysis, and then stood back as they came back to us with really ambitious recommendations. That was behind what has ended up here today as we read this bill for the second time. I'm very proud of the Oireachtas and the way we set up a joint Oireachtas committee to work on this on a participative, collective, collaborative basis, and the really good work that they had done in the last Oireachtas. And I have to say, especially if the Chair Brian Levin is here and the other members of the joint Oireachtas committee, It's time for us to be read because they have put the time in. Is it 50 hours in private session and weeks of hearings where you brought the best experts in? It's time we read it now, a second stage, taking into account the 78 amendments that your committee recommended, the vast majority of which have been implemented in this bill. It's time as well to thank the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach and Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, our government coalition partners, because they do get it. They really believe that we can, as a country, be good at this, and their support and their commitment in our programme for government was critical in us getting this legislation to this stage. And I look forward to working with them in implementing the provisions that they were about to legislate for. And I say the same to every other party, because this is not a bill that just applies to this Oireachtas or this government. This is something that's going to have to be there to guide 6 governments at least, if not 7 or more, over the next 30 years, so that it's not a stop-start change, so that it's something that is consistent and collective and agreed upon. But if we were to thank anyone for getting to this stage in reading this bill today for the second time, I would like to take out those people, those students, those teachers, those friends and families who stood outside the Dáil every Friday in rain, hail, sleet or snow for so long, and were part of that international movement of young students who stood up and said, it's time for us to act. That another word was possible, that we are unstoppable when we think in that way. And it's on their behalf, or I would like to thank them on our behalf in this Oireachtas, because I think it was their influence at a critical time in this country and across the world which actually set the scene, which allowed for those more ambitious targets which are going to be talked about in President Biden's meeting tomorrow, in the European Union today and the UK yesterday. They are the ones who take credit, in my mind, for this legislation. And they're the ones who are going to have to implement most of it, who are going to actually be the beneficiaries of the real positive developments, the hopeful developments that this legislation will bring. For not only does it protect us from the risk that climate change brings, it also delivers a new energy economy where we in this country have a competitive advantage. There are jobs for our young people in this. Their digital skills will be key in how we do efficiency. It will lead to balanced regional development because our power is dispersed right across the country. The rural independents know that. This is going to be the future for the West and South West and North West and East of Ireland and Midlands. This is going to be good for rural Ireland. I'm absolutely convinced of that. It's also going to be good for our transport system. Electrifying, using our own power supplies rather than buying it in from abroad. It's a social transformation because it will be a modal shift towards public transport and active travel, which creates a stronger sense of community and connection and reduces the amount of travel we have to do. For Irish agriculture, this is the future of the Irish, this is the protection of the Irish family farm. This is the chance for us to pay a whole generation of young new farmers to come into managing our land, protecting our nature. They will be the frontline heroes of this transformation of this climate action plan. For our economy, what we make and sell with the rest of the world, and we will still have to be open and engaged and collective and collaborative with the world in this, has everything to gain from going green. In tourism, in all the high-tech, low-carbon manufacturing that we are really skilled in farming, in food, in every one of the Irish industries that we're strong in, we have everything to gain from going green. But we need to change. We need to change away from putting all the blame and shame and pressure on the consumer that are you doing the right thing, and instead change the system so that it's easier for people to do the right thing. And that's what this bill is about. It's a bill for system change that delivers a just transition, a new economic model that is fairer, more balanced, more secure and sustainable in every way. To change the system, we need our system, the public service and the agencies of the state,
a bill to finish
to actually lead and to be flexible and to be creative and to willing to make mistakes and to learn from other countries and to share with other countries what we're doing. We are stepping up as leaders today, and more than anyone else, it's our public service who have stepped up as leaders. I want to thank the officials and the advisors in my department and others who have been central to the drafting of this legislation. We are lucky and proud to have the public service that we have independent, straight, hard-working, and this is going to put them to the test. This legislation, more than anything else, is going to put huge demands on them, as I'm about to set out in its provisions, as to how they do their work and what they're going to do in the next 30 years. To set out those provisions, if I can't go here, look, which is proper process in such a second reading. Firstly, at the core of the bill is the National Climate Objective, which commits the state to pursue and achieve a transition to a climate-resilient, biodiversity-rich, environmentally sustainable and climate-neutral economy by no later than 2050. The bill defines a climate-neutral economy as a sustainable economy and society where greenhouse gas emissions in the state are balanced or exceeded by the removal of greenhouse gases. This commitment is clear and consistent with delivery on our obligations under the Paris Climate Agreement. That's what we're implementing in this bill. The bill as a whole, and not only the National Climate Objective, is underpinned by our international obligations and informed by science. The bill requires government to carry out its functions under the bill in a manner consistent with the objectives of and the state's obligations to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and Article 2 and 4.1 of the Paris Agreement, and which also takes account of Ireland's greenhouse gas inventory and projection reports. The bill reflects the need to provide a strong and clear governance framework to achieve its ambition and will permanently cement a strengthened statutory framework to drive this transformative change over time. To this end, the bill provides that the states must firstly prepare five-year carbon budgets which cover all of Ireland's greenhouse gas emissions, apportion each five-year carbon budget amongst key emitting sectors and establish emission ceilings for those sectors, define the key ministers responsible for achieving emissions reductions in these sectors and make them accountable for doing so, prepare an annual climate action plan that describes the actions every minister will take to achieve their sectoral emission ceilings, develop a national long-term climate action strategy at least every 5 years that describes the mitigation and adaptation policies that we will put in place towards meeting the national climate objective. With regard to recognition of need for earlier action, in realising the importance of near to medium-term action to enable the achievement of climate neutrality by mid-century, the bill ensures our efforts are front-loaded. It provides that the first two carbon budgets will provide a 51% reduction in the annual level of greenhouse emissions by 2030. This enacted commitment, which will be one of the most ambitious of any developed country, but is informed by climate science and in line with
reducing them by 51% the national
and the commitment in the programme for government. Our increased ambition to 2030 in law will ensure Ireland, for the first time, goes beyond just setting targets. It ensures guarantees to the best extent possible that we deliver on our fair share of the global effort, in essence providing real climate justice. In relation to the carbon budgets, they are of key significance in this bill, in the embedding in a statutory process of carbon budgeting and sectoral emissions targets. Carbon budgets will explicitly cover the whole economy, include all greenhouse gases and provide a ceiling of total emissions allowed within a 5-year period. 3 consecutive 5-year carbon budgets are set once every 5 years as part of a rolling carbon budget programme, with the third 5-year plan and later carbon budgets of each series set as a provisional budget. This means it can be reviewed and revised and finalised in the next.
How much is the electricity going up by Ashko?
This approach provides an appropriate balance between certainty and flexibility. It provides certainty on our medium-term goals. If the clock can be stopped, I have to take the point of order.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, Carly.
We don't have any copies of your speech, Minister, and I've asked and they're none available. I mean, we're 20 minutes.
The Climate Change Committee, it is only the select few could get into that. All the sessions were held in private.
I'm informed that that is not a point of order. Minister, can you arrange
for
the
of course it is.
deputies to be furnished with a copy?
We're all held in private, all the committees meetings. No other view could be had. He didn't want to hear them.
There's more of it.
Supporting
Cover up again that we can't see the truth.
Implementation over time. But it also offers an appropriate level of flexibility to allow, where necessary, a degree of adjustment and reorientation of plans and strategies over time and within different sectors. The Climate Change Advisory Council, which is an independent statutory body established under the 2015 Act, will have a crucial role to play in developing carbon budgets and is given additional responsibility through this bill to propose carbon budgets to the Minister. Following government approval of the carbon budget programme, the Minister will invite both houses of the Oireachtas to consider and approve the carbon budget programme, ensuring full cross-party participation in the carbon budget process. In regard to economy-wide action, after the carbon budget is approved, sectoral emission ceilings will be adopted for each relevant sector. The bill sets out key principles which will influence and guide the development of the carbon budgets, sectoral emission ceilings and the underpinning plans and strategies to ensure the transition is managed in as fair and just a way as possible. This includes the importance of promoting sustainable development and restoring and protecting biodiversity. The bill also provides for the need to have regard to the social and economic imperative for early and cost-effective action, the need for a just transition which supports persons and communities that may be negatively impacted, and the need to maximise employment and the attractiveness of the state for investment. The fact that the means of achieving a carbon-neutral economy and other measures to enable the state to pursue the national climate objective may not yet be fully identified and may evolve over time through innovation is set in as the evolving scientific consensus and emerging technologies arrive. This objective of sharing the effort, both across the economy and over time, is a key feature of this bill. Sectoral emission ceilings identified and set for all relevant sectors of the economy will, in my view, drive the necessary restructuring to incentivise change and drive innovation across all sectors. The bill also provides a greater level of oversight and accountability. A new Section 14A introduced by the bill will provide that the Minister for Climate Action must give an account annually to a joint committee of the Oireachtas for compliance with the carbon budget and progress under the Climate Action Plan. Other ministers must also account for progress in their own sectors within the context of the adopted sectoral emission ceiling, ensuring enhanced.
The House before he made his speech, and I just want clarification. Why is it being allowed to continue without us being given his speech before he started making it? It's a departure from the rules that are usually abided by inside in this House. The Minister, he's a very experienced politician, he knows this himself. Ministers do not stand up, make a speech without that speech being given to the members present beforehand. So what are they trying to cover up and hide in this bill?
Deputy, I am informed that that is not a point of order. It's a matter for each individual minister.
It's a fact.
I will ask the Minister, will you undertake to furnish deputies with a copy of the speech in due course?
I'd be happy to do that, yes.
Person's view. All the meetings were held in private, and this is the very same. He wants to hide, try to hide what he is doing from the people of Ireland. But before we'll be finished with the people of Ireland, they'll know what you're trying to do with them, especially the people in rural Ireland. He wants to finish them off altogether. For good and glory, that's what you're at. That's what you're trying to do. And you're trying to hoodwink the people. But when Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael go to the doors the next time, they'll get their answer if they'll do this to the people of rural Ireland.
If the deputies wish to know the content of the speech, I suggest they resume their seats and allow the Minister to continue in his speech.
No, why has the speech not been distributed?
I am informed by
it is all held in camera. They want to hold it, do it all in private. But the people of Ireland will know, because the people of Ireland will have to pay.
We were respectful enough here, Chairperson, to be here to listen to the speech. But the least we get is the speech before us, and it should stop until that speech is handed to us.
I am informed.
What's the cover-up?
What are you ashamed of? Not for the Chair of the House. The Minister
well, it's not for me to sort out, it's the Minister.
The Minister has undertaken.
Chair, it's like everything else here. They're putting the cart before the horse.
It is, however, not a point of order.
Everything comes.
I would ask members to resume their seats and allow the Minister
it's absolutely
to resume
disgraceful. He couldn't even do that.
Well, the Minister should be honourable enough to make sure that he wouldn't continue this until we have a copy of his speech before us.
Their feet. We should have one member of the House on the feet. I ask the deputies again, resume your seats and allow the Minister to continue.
There's not many of us that here that we can't be given a copy of the speech that the Minister is making.
That is not a matter.
We should demand that we get the speeches.
I ask the deputies to resume their seats.
Well, hold him up there until we get the speeches.
This should be abandoned until we're given the speech, the same as what was always the procedures before.
And that's fair, because that is more like Russia now, Putin in action.
Chair of the House, it is within the discretion of the Minister. The Minister has undertaken to provide a copy of the speech in due course. I ask members to resume their seats and allow the Minister to continue.
Why didn't he give it to us?
Why is he allowed to continue until we get the speech, Chairman? We're being fair.
I accept you're in a difficult position.
No, we are out of order.
But I don't accept the vice.
There is no point of order in this. I have asked deputies repeatedly to resume their seats.
I've seen it before. I've seen it before when ministers were asked for speeches, instructions were given, and they arrived. Are we getting? I asked the minister, are we going to get a copy of the speech or not?
The Minister has undertaken that a copy of the speech will be furnished.
Any idea when?
I ask you to resume your seat and allow the Minister to continue.
Get it. When are we going to get it? That's the question we're asking.
We're asking, Chairperson, and you're not able to give us an answer.
Minister, can you give us a time?
You don't want to give us an answer.
Chair, I would also say that other members of this House also do want to hear the speech. I will provide a copy of it as soon as I can. But I think, out of respect to all deputies here, let's hear each other. Let's listen. I'll set out the provisions which I'm in the middle of, and I ask the right to finish that process, and you will have the speech as soon as we can deliver to you. If I can keep going, Chair. The Joint Committee will be informed by the latest projections and inventories prepared by the EPA and by the annual report of the Climate Change Advisory Council, which will also now include assessment of compliance with the carbon budget and with sectoral emission ceilings for that period. The annual update, the Climate Action Plan, complements this process and provides an opportunity to include new and updated or corrective actions where necessary to adjust and ensure compliance with the carbon budget and sectoral emission ceilings. Through regular reporting of progress and a shared responsibility for the task ahead, we will deliver the change required, realise our long-term climate objective and achieve our EU and international obligations. In recognition that climate action will be an iterative process over many decades, the bill provides that the Climate Action Plan will be reviewed and updated annually to adjust our measures if necessary to ensure we remain on track. The annual Climate Action Plan will be aligned to the adopted 3 5-year carbon budgets. It will set out the actions and measures to achieve each 5-year budget and associated sectoral targets assigned. The National Long-Term Climate Action Strategy will look then at the long-term pathways to achieve the 2050 target. As science and technology evolves, these pathways will be expected in turn to evolve over time. It's appropriate, therefore, that this long-term strategy be updated at least every 5 years. I fully recognise that while this direction of change will bring many opportunities, it will also present some challenges that we will need to address in our transition. Regular dialogue and listening to individuals and communities and to different economic sectors will be a critical feature of this approach. The bill provides, therefore, for extensive consultation in the development of the carbon budgets and the future plans and strategies, ensuring effective public participation at all key steps of the process. This bill will have a transformative effect on our climate policy ambitions and implementation in order to achieve such transformation. We must ensure that there are clear obligations that compel government, ministers and public bodies to act. To this end, the bill requires ministers and the government to perform their functions in a manner consistent with, insofar as is practical, the carbon budgets that are in effect. Each minister is also required to comply in a similar manner with adopted sectoral emission ceilings and relevant plans and strategies. Consistent with this approach, public bodies will also have a general obligation to perform their functions, insofar as practical, in a manner consistent with requirements of the various plans and strategies under the legislation, and with furthering the achievement of the national climate objective. The bill requires local authorities to prepare their own climate action plan every 5 years. These plans will be consistent with national climate plans and will include both mitigation and adaptation measures. In order to ensure appropriate alignment between the local authority climate action plans and their development plans, the bill amends the Planning and Development Act 2000 to provide that the approved local authority climate action plan is taken into account in the preparation of any future development plan. These requirements ensure that climate action will be integrated into policy making and implementation at all levels of public administration in Ireland. If I could, Claire, just have slightly extra time just to finish the speech, just to go through all the provisions, recognising some of my time was lost in mid-speech. I would like to address first briefly, finally, my intention to bring forward certain amendments to this bill at this stage in order to give effect to programme for government commitments. This government has set a clear pathway towards less reliance on fossil fuels across every sector in our society. It specifically contains a commitment to end the issuing of new licences for exploration and extraction of gas on the same basis as the decision taken in 2019 by the previous government in relation to oil exploration and extraction. Upon taking office, I made the above commitment effective immediately. My department is no longer accepting new applications for exploration licences for natural gas or oil, nor will there be any future licensing rounds. It's expected that the number of authorisations will decline further as authorisations continue to expire or are relinquished, with no new authorisations for new exploration and extraction replacing them. I received government approval on the 2nd of February 2021 to prepare legislation to give statutory effect to this prohibition through this bill. A statutory ban will send another clear message to industry and the world that Ireland is moving away from oil and natural gas exploration and extraction. I also received government approval to draft amendments to the Electricity Supply Amendment Act 1954 for inclusion in this bill. Acknowledging the significant level of investment required by ESB Group and its business, in particular in electricity network assets and renewable generation assets, these new heads will increase the statutory borrowing limit of the ESB from its current level of €6 billion to €12 billion. This will support ESB Group's efforts to decarbonise the energy sector in Ireland and to support the achievement of the Climate Action Plan and the associated 2030 targets. In conclusion, can I finish, Carlac, by saying this is a critical time and a critical moment in our country. And we've seen similar times in the past where we made big decisions that had a deep influence on our society and success as a nation. Decisions such as investing in free education, the decision to open up to foreign investment, decision to join the European Union. This is another of those moments when we commit to the journey to net zero and we living on this shared future on our planet in a safe, sustainable way that will be good for all our people forever and a day. Thank you.